The top business stories live from the Sky Newsroom. UK unemployment jumps as wage growth is at its slowest rate for 2 years. As Donald Trump's new cabinet begins to take shape, I'll be joined by his former Secretary of Commerce to talk trade, tariffs and tax. Plus, Shell wins its appeal against a landmark court ruling that it must sharply reduce its carbon emissions. Very good afternoon and welcome to Business Live with me, Darren McCaffrey, on this Tuesday. We're going to start with some breaking news in the last couple of minutes concerning the Post Office. Let's bring in our city editor, Mark Kleiman, who joins us. Mark, bring us up to date with what's happening.
Yeah, that's right, Darren. Some significant news about the Post Office, which of course is a state-owned company and continues to reel from the aftermath of the Horizon IT scandal. What I've learned this afternoon is that the Post Office is drawing up plans to close more than 100 wholly owned post office branches and cut hundreds of jobs at its head office. Now, these plans could be announced as soon as this week, I understand. It won't affect sub-postmasters because the branches that have been earmarked for closure, which are loss-making in aggregate, I understand, are run and owned by the Post Office itself rather than sub-postmasters. In total, they employ about 900 people, I'm told, but the Post Office will look to secure alternative franchise arrangements for the affected branches. So it's possible that some of them will be kept open with alternative operators. I'm also told that the job losses at the Post Office headquarters could reach as high as 1,000 or more. So some significant changes in store at the Post Office, and this all comes as part of the company's efforts to put its finances on a long-term sustainable footing.
And Mark, this obviously comes at a time in which the government are looking at a wider review into the structure of the Post Office, and I think you've got an update on that as well.
Yeah, that's right, Darren. We reported last month that the government had brought in consultants from BCG to examine potential options to mutualise the Post Office, in effect to hand ownership of the Post Office to thousands of sub-postmasters across the country. The Post Office remains Britain's biggest retail network with about 11,500 branches. Now, that work, as I understand it, is ongoing. It won't be concluded for several months yet. But Jonathan Reynolds, the business secretary, who was questioned at the Horizon IT scandal public inquiry this week, is understood to be supportive of the analysis of that possibility. And so I suspect that we will hear more in the new year about plans to hand at least a portion of the Post Office's ownership to the sub-postmasters who keep post offices running up and down the country.
OK, great stuff, Mark. Thank you very much indeed for that update. That Mark Kleiman there joining us from Westminster. Now, Donald Trump's cabinet is beginning to take shape. Reports today suggest that the president-elect will name Marco Rubio as his new Secretary of State. The Florida senator, of course, is considered to be pretty hawkish on his views of doing business with China. And it comes as President-elect Trump prepares to bring in trade tariffs when he takes the keys to the White House in January. Well, delighted to say I'm joined by a man who knows Donald Trump very well. That's Wilbur Ross. He served in his last administration as Secretary of Commerce. Wilbur, thank you so much indeed for joining us. I suppose my first question is, we're a week on from the election. Were you kind of surprised by the results? And also, have you had a chance to speak to President Trump, or President-elect Trump, since he won re-election?
Well, I wasn't surprised that he won. I was surprised at the margin of victory. It was quite a stupendous victory, and there were three causes to it. Young men swung very much to Trump's favor, as did Hispanic and Blacks. So there were really three big changes from what the pollsters thought would happen to what actually did happen.
And lots of talk has been made or suggested over the last couple of days about how Donald Trump is going to be a very different president, Trump 2.0 in his second term. You served in his first term. What do you think the second Donald Trump presidency will look like? How will it be different, do you think?
I think it'll be very different. For one thing, he now has assembled a large body of people he knows are in sync with his program and who have good experience for the roughly 2,000 important posts he has to fill. So whereas last time he did not have that kind of infrastructure and therefore had to rely on recommendations of friends, now he has people he can draw on, known very well to him. That will make a lot less chaos, a lot less disagreement over policy going forward. The other big change from last time as a result of that is that he's making his announcement earlier than he did last time. Last time it was very, very much around Thanksgiving before he started announcing anything. And the other final difference is it looks as though he will definitely have control of the Senate. Last time, while we had technical control of the Senate, Mitch McConnell was not particularly a Trump person. This time, whoever gets it, whichever of the three senators gets it, will be a Trumper and very likely will move the appointments much faster than last time. So I think you'll find him hitting the ground running.
Wilbur, can I just pick up on just something that you said there about, effectively he's surrounding himself now with loyalists who're going to plead loyalty to him, but he's not changed as a personality, and you and I both know that he's got the ability quite easily to fall out with people. Isn't that a concern that his second term could still be one of chaos because of the strong personalities that he has and he surrounds himself with?
Well, I don't think so, because in the first term, one of the big debates was tariffs and trade policy. There were actually people in the White House who were free traders. And Trump, of course, is not a free trader. So the chaos wasn't because so much of his personality. The chaos was there were people who were appointed who were not in sync with his program. It's a very different situation this time.
Okay, and President-elect Trump has talked about tariffs that you've just mentioned there. You called the word tariff the most beautiful word in the English language. What is his rationale? Why is he a big fan of tariffs? And do you think he will follow through with these potentially enormous tariffs, not just on China, but indeed on the rest of the world?
Well, he will be pursuing a more aggressive tariff structure than used to be the case. But he's always been very much in favor of tariffs, so that isn't new. What is new is that there is now more of a general consensus in the public and in the Congress that tariffs are a useful thing. Last time around, there was quite a bit of opposition to tariffs. There was still a lot of so-called free traders running around Washington, and that's very much less the case now. So there'll be less opposition to his ideas of tariffs. And he views tariffs as an important mechanism for correcting some of the inappropriate actions that other governments have taken to boost their trade at our expense.
We in the UK often talk about, we think we have a special relationship with the United States. Do you think that matters? Do you think it matters to President-elect Trump? I mean, in the end, do you think he might be open to giving the UK a special deal if it comes to tariffs?
Well, we did give special deals to a number of countries in specific instances. For example, Australia got some relief about certain kinds of steel because they were the unique manufacturer. that Canada got relief relative to aluminum for the same reason. So it will be reasonable, it'll be a rational trade policy, but it won't be just big blanket things. And in Trump's mind, tariffs are also tied to other behavioral activity by the various countries. For example, as you're well aware, he's quite insistent that the NATO members come up with their promise, longer-term promise, to get to 2% defense as a percent of their total budget. Very few NATO countries are up to that, and tariffs may very well be one of the weapons he uses to try to get conformity.
Yeah, that kind of transactional relationship that people have talked about. Wilbur, also just on the Fed, it's fair to say that Donald Trump has been pretty critical of the Federal Reserve in the last couple of years. Do you think he's potentially going to undermine its independence to become a more activist president?
Well, he is an activist president. There's no question about that. But I think it's also true the Federal Reserve had quite a few missteps under the present leadership of Jay Powell. They started raising started raising rates very early in the Trump administration, even before there was any real inflation. They subsequently reversed that, but they started out prematurely raising. Then later on, you can argue that they have been behind the ball, both on the way up and perhaps now on the way down. So I don't think their record is that distinguished, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't think so either.
And just very finally, Wilbur, while we've got you, the downside, and people have talked about this, about a Donald Trump presidency in the US, is increased debts that might become unsustainable, and also that actually he might feed inflation. Should people be concerned about that? Are you concerned that that could be a possibility under a second Trump term?
Well, as I point out in the book that I recently published called Risks and Returns, President Trump has some very real ideas about making the economy grow more rapidly. And I believe the only way we will eventually get the debt problem under control is a combination of some reductions in unnecessary spending and a much more rapid rate of growth. You can't have a federal budget that's running 5% deficit relative to GDP and only growing at around 2% and hope to have anything but debt. So I think Elon Musk will chip away at some of the excess costs, but we have to get back on a faster growth track. And that's what his deregulation and reduction in taxes is all about, as well as, remember, in his regime, Ivanka Trump and I co-chaired the Workforce Development Group. And that was trying to take people who were willing to work, in fact, eager to work, but lacked the necessary skills and get them those skills. We need to increase our workforce participation from its present 63%.
Okay.
Right now, 63% of the workforce age people are lugging along 37% who are not working and don't want to.
Okay, well, we haven't got that much longer to wait to see what Trump 2.0 looks like. Wilbur, thank you very much for your time. You even got a plug for your book in there, so you got it all in. Thank you so much for your time. That's Wilbur Ross there, who was Secretary of Commerce during Donald Trump's first term. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now, let's return to the UK here, because unemployment has gone up more than expected. According to the Office for National Statistics, the jobless rate rose to 4.3% in the 3 months to September. That was up from 4% in the previous 3 months and higher than the 4.1% predicted by economists. Meanwhile, wage growth has also fallen to its lowest level in more than 2 years, with average regular earnings growth slipping to 4.8% in the 3 months to September. That's down from 4.9% in the previous quarter. And job vacancies also fell, down by 35,000 to 831,000 in the 3 months to October. That's the lowest level in 3 years. Now, Shell has won its appeal against a climate court ruling that it must sharply reduce its carbon emissions. The oil and gas producer went to the Court of Appeal in the Netherlands following a decision in support of environmental campaign groups in the country, including Friends of the Earth. That ruling in 2021 ordered Shell to cut its carbon emissions by 45% by the end of this decade compared to 2019 levels in order to protect Dutch citizens. But the judge in the appeal has dismissed all the claims against the oil giant. The drugs giant AstraZeneca has increased its annual sales and profits forecast for the second time this year, with three-quarter results beating estimates. It also announced plans for expansion in the US, with $2 billion in new spending and research and development and manufacturing plans. Shares in the company have fallen around 17% in the last 3 months, following concern over its business in China. AstraZeneca said today it's taking investigations by the Chinese authorities very seriously and will fully cooperate with them. Well, we're going to pause there on Business Live. Coming up in just a couple of minutes, though, we're going to take a look at how the markets are faring this afternoon. As you see, the FTSE has been down today, 1.22%. We'll be finding out why in just a couple of minutes. Stay tuned.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos, analysis, up at 6%. Podcasts, watching us live.
Joins us live.
All in one place, and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
I'm Adam Parsons, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Brussels. I've witnessed migration across Europe close up.
I'm James Matthews and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Washington, D.C. Mr. Musk, has your ignorance and ego cost Ukrainian lives? Free, wherever you get your news.
I'm Ivor Bennett, Sky's Moscow correspondent.
Why do you support Vladimir Putin, Mr. Seagal?
I'm Conor Gillis, Sky's Scotland correspondent. Sky News, the full story first.
Trust in politics is at an all-time low. What's going wrong and can we fix it? It's from Liz. She wants to know, why is there still no sign of the Labour Party electing a woman as leader?
It's sort of embarrassing. You know, it takes a very strong man to be leader, but it takes an even stronger man to support a woman for leader.
If you want to be mean to politicians, like, crack on. The activists that go out and make elections happen, I kind of feel like just don't be horrible to them. Be polite to them in the same way that they're polite to you.
Keir Starmer has got us into government with a big majority. He was completely clear before the election that he wasn't going to be able to do the two-child benefit policy, but I wouldn't be surprised if it isn't an early thing that comes along.
I went up to Gordon Brown and said, hello? No, yes, what is it? I said, found all these Tory candidates breaking land. Let me see it. This is brilliant.
Play Sky News.
From the Sky News Centre at 7.
Now that you're up to date, we can go into a bit more detail.
Things can change incredibly quickly.
Taken by surprise.
Have you ever known a moment like this in British politics before?
Yes.
Cheers.
We'll start with breaking news.
Let's get the latest on the ground.
So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better.
this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Why only in America?
People want their country to work.
Just want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
OK, let's have a look at the markets on this Tuesday afternoon. And things are looking a little flat on Wall Street following the post-election boost of the last couple of days. As you can see, the Nasdaq down there a little bit. European stocks also have been down largely today. As you can see, pretty much across the board here. The FTSE 100 also finished down just over 1%. Meanwhile, the colostomy bag specialist Convatec Group has seen some eye-watering gains after it hiked its guidance for the full year and reported stronger revenue growth than expected so far this year. Vodafone, though, it's had a very bad day after it reported revenue drops in Germany, its biggest market, down over 8% there. And also a bad day for sterling, down over 1% to $1.27 against the dollar, and also down against the euro, 0.5% today to $1.20. And finally, if we look at oil, a barrel of oil just up very slightly today, but just under $72 a barrel. Well, let's speak to Janet Murray. She is Head of Market Analysts at RBC Brewin Dolphin. Very good afternoon to you, Janet. We have to start, don't we, with the dollar. I think it's at a one-year high today, and sterling certainly suffering because of it.
Hi, Daryl, thanks for having me. Yes, the dollar has been on a tear. It's part of that Trump trade, basically, because there's expectation that Trump's policy is very pro-growth and could fuel inflation and also fueling debt and deficit. And that's why U.S. bond yields have been rising. And that really supports the dollar. But particularly, you mentioned that the pound has been weak, down 1% versus the dollar. So I think that's really attributable to the fact that the unemployment rate has risen more than expected. So there's some concern on the outlook of the labor market there.
Yeah, interesting. We're reporting the very fact that unemployment has risen a bit. But in saying that, it is fair to say that Donald Trump has had an impact, hasn't he, on lots of different areas. Tesla, unsurprisingly, is up. But also, Bitcoin is substantially up as well.
Yes, absolutely. Again, that's part of that Trump trade, because basically a big part of his agenda is to deregulate the industries. And he's a pro-crypto person, and similarly his cabinet and Elon Musk as well. So I think they're reaping the benefits of that. Tesla, for example, they need deregulation because autonomous driving is one of the key profit-driving areas. So if Elon Musk can influence deregulation at the federal level, that will be very, very beneficial to Tesla. And crypto, I think, really a bull market there. If there is deregulation, if you get more asset managers participating, more institutions buying in, more issuance of other crypto ETFs, that would really reinvigorate the whole crypto market.
And Jenna, let's talk about the other big global economy, China. And we've seen these stimulus packages announced over the last couple of months, including one in the last couple of days. And yet still the markets and economists don't seem to think that it's been overwhelming, if you like, that it's going to massively shift the dial. Why is that?
Yes, I guess there's still a lack of specifics, and particularly I think analysts want to see more clues on fiscal stimulus that is directly on consumption, things like cash handout. But what we get is recently is, for example, debt swap for the local government bonds. Basically, it's not really generating any new things. It's just a swap of the hidden debt to more visible debt, bringing it official. And the ones that is announced today is reducing tax on property transaction, which is good incrementally, but it's not the things that markets are looking for. So I think that is the bit that is underwhelming. I think reason why the European stock market is down so much today, particularly French stocks with a lot of those luxury sectors highly exposed to Chinese consumers.
Really fascinating. We'll have to see whether potentially there are further stimulus packages down the path. But Janet, for now, Really appreciate your time. That's Janet Mooy, who is Head of Market Analysts at RBC Brewin Dolphin, joining us there from the city. Thank you for your time, Janet. As always, much appreciated. OK, that is it from me for Business Live for today. Of course, we're back tomorrow morning at 11:30. Up next, though, it is Mark Austin with the News Hour, the very latest on the resignation of the Archbishop of Canterbury. Stay tuned for that. I'll see you tomorrow, though. Goodbye.